Instagrams, which people took screenshots of and then reposted on Twitter, and somehow it ended up in my Twitter feed because someone that I follow retweeted it, and I'm like, I don't what, why,
Right.
why,
And there it is.
what is, who is this? Why is this
And
in my
there it
feed? Like,
there
what
it
is
is. Like,
really going on?
you can't avoid it. And in that, like, that's the part about it that is um frustrating, right? Because either you totally opt out of social media, or you kind of tacitly comply with this craziness, right? Um, and I think that's the other piece about it, that I think it also has to be noted that the fact that the Kardashians are a household name makes this a different case to begin with. And I would imagine that for somebody like him who's grown up in the context of having cameras in your house and following you and all of your siblings around for the majority of your formative years, like at least since he was a late teen, right? He's grown up with this as the quote unquote norm.
Yes, you're
I
right.
would imagine it probably is more difficult for him to discern reality from scripted reality. If you're
Okay,
constantly used to everything you're doing being open to public consumption, it probably was really easy for him to allegedly hit post on those pictures.
and
It
I hear
probably
that.
wasn't that much of a distinction of him thinking, well, we've been on running reruns and marathons for the past X number of years, so I'm just gonna put these pictures up. The
And
problem,
here's, I'm sorry,
wait, let me
go on.
finish. The problem is, I need everybody else to recognize you are not a Kardashian, and that you have to take some accountability for your behavior when you are engaging in a public space like social media, and that you really have to pause before you post. You have to stop and think about the long term consequences and ramifications of your actions when you were operating online.
And I hear that, and I apologize for interjecting, but
It's okay.
I gotta tell you, I'm jumping in my seat over here. I'm jumping in my seat because, as a working class brother from New York, I say to myself, I pay good money for health care and utilize it accordingly. You are sitting up there with money on top of money. They say, what's that phrase? Checks on top of checks, I think is the word in the street. You know you have problems. Why are you not talking to a Dr. Nikki of your own and getting yourself the appropriate health care that you need? And this is where you and I differ on these issues, because you do look at it from the psychological perspective, and that brings you some professional and personal empathy. But I think sometimes I stand on the side of the people who are just going day to day. I find it hard to find empathy around these issues because these are people who have resources. Why aren't they using their resources? Now, I'm sure you're going to come back to me with the psychological, oh, well, this and that, and the pain of the life and the soul treatments, and they don't do yoga like you do, and all that kind of stuff. I get it. Like, I get it.
I'm so angry that that's how you see, that's how you hear my use of my professional training. That is exactly what
That's
you
you in session. Let's do yoga. We feel the pain.
know.
No, I know you well enough to know that's not the case. But do you see where I'm coming from? Like, to the average person that we were
I
just
don't
speaking
know.
to, and you're
You know,
saying, like, pause before you post. But to that, like, that average person doesn't have the luxury of those resources. And so I'm going to throw this argument at you. If the average person did this without access to certain resources, I could understand it more than a Rob Kardashian allegedly doing this. Because that Rob Kardashian has access to resources to help. He has people around him, or could potentially have people around him, who would bring him to pause to do this kind of thing. We're not talking about one photo, one post. We're talking about a series of posts that eventually led to you being banned from Instagram. The typical person on the street going in between from here to there doesn't have that resource, may not necessarily even know that there's an issue. So I hear what you're saying. But I'm struggling with that.
So basically, part of what we're talking about is, I think it's I think it's complicated, but I think part of what we're talking about is a combination of personal accountability and impulse control. And I think that I can't imagine that growing up the way that he has grown up and living the lifestyle that they've created in the past decade or so has allowed him to have any opportunity for personal accountability. For what is he held responsible? I think it's compounded by the fact that he's a man. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I think that there's this term called male fragility. And I think lots of men, regardless of their status, when their feelings are hurt, when they feel like a line has been crossed, they feel justified in reacting in whatever way will bring them back the sense of power that they need to bring them back into equilibrium.
Right.
The other part is about impulse control. There has to be some part of your brain that says, wait, let me think this through before I do it. And I think that goes a lot hand in hand with accountability. So if you've never been held accountable for your actions, then you don't develop that internal compass to be able to say, this might not go well for me. Not even think about the other person. Not even think about the empathic part or the respectful part about the fact that this woman is your child's mother. None of that stuff. But just, it might not go well for me. But if you live in a context in which you always get your way, in which things always work out in your favor, even if you have to go through some drama and some struggle, you don't learn to take accountability for your actions. It makes perfect sense to me.
See, that's why I don't like you sometimes, because you always try to get me to empathize. I gotta change pace.
I believe that fundamentally is where we are all jacked up in the game.
Right.
We either have to decide as a collective that we are going to, first of all, recognize that we all have access to humanity, have a right to humanity, and try to find the humanity in others. If we can't begin to do that, we really need to just call it quits as a collective. And so I can have empathy for the context and set of circumstances that led allegedly to Rob Kardashian acting in the way that he did. It doesn't mean it's justifiable. It doesn't mean that he's shouldn't be held accountable. It doesn't mean that I think it's okay. That both of those things can exist at the same time for me.
And I just want to take a second to just go left for a second and give a shout out to DJ Baker. DJ Baker, who does the top 40 countdown.
Hey, DJ!
On all digital radio. He's been active in the chat room. And I just wanted to read two of his comments that he stated. When we were talking earlier about taking away power, he said he did take away her power. And that's the point of men that truly don't respect black women, all caps in black. He wouldn't do that to his sisters. But Blac Chyna is different. And I think that's a really interesting point. Because Absolutely. He has had beef with his sisters, but nothing this vile, allegedly, has ever been done. He then
I definitely think that. I'm sorry. I just want to add, we probably need a whole nother show just about this concept.
Really? But, because we've actually gone over a half hour.
I know, we're going our time.
We're coming close to
I know,
our
okay,
time.
We need to close now. But I yes, what DJ Baker said. Yes, I'm just going to listen.
No, go ahead on. Say what you were going to say. We're still good.
No, but I think the bar is set differently for black women, perhaps women of color, we could probably say, but I for sure say black women. There is a historical context for devaluing black women's bodies, for over-sexualizing black women. And so the expectation for how black women should be treated with respect in public is already at a different level than if he were with a white woman. And I stand by that as fact. And you want to argue with me, come see me about that.
Well, on that note,
it's probably time to shut it down for this week's episode. Seriously. seriously, you know, I
No.
have to I need to just make sure we end on a note to say that I know it to be true that many times in life you are best suited if you take a breath and a moment before you act. That there's always opportunity to see something from a different perspective, to respond to something in a different way if you just take a pause before you post. And on that note, we're going to end today's show. We will see you next Friday, July 14th at this same time, where we're going to talk about hashtag Black Boy Joy. So we hope you join us then.
Thanks, everyone, for listening today. And Dr. Nikki, thank you for an amazing show.
Thanks for being the devil's advocate that we needed today, Tomas. Have a good weekend, guys.